Why are there no good spy games anymore? There is no other genre, other than arguably westerns, that has been so madly underutilized. Think about it. Besides Alpha Protocol, Metal Gear Solid 5, and some independent offerings like Counter-Spy, who has even tried recently? To me, it seems like a missed opportunity. The campy, bombastic action of movies like Mission Impossible and James Bond are the perfect blend of mystery, intrigue, science, romance, action, and espionage to translate into the interactive format of video games. But time and time again, they are misused and underutilized, ending up as nothing more than generic shooters or glued-to-the-wall stealth games. But let's back up a little bit. What do I mean when I say spy or espionage games? First of all, I want to emphatically state that espionage does not equal stealth. It can include stealth elements, absolutely, but just because a game is focused on sneaking around doesn't mean that it's a spy game. So games like the Assassin's Creed, your Deus Exes, and Thief, they don't really matter in this discussion, as well as RPGs and open-world games that have one or two stealth or infiltration sections. So, if espionage isn't just stealth, then what is it? Well, defined, it means the practice of spying or of using spies, typically by governments, to obtain political and military information. But what does that mean in games? Simply put, it means that the main focus of a proper espionage game should be task execution, infiltration, and information gathering, not just action. From books and movies of the genre, we can also infer that any proper spy story should include a wide range of exotic locations, each presenting their own different challenges that our spy must overcome. Fortunately, the genre also suggests that our main character be supported by an organization with near unlimited pockets that will supply intriguing and unique gadgets to help complete these objectives. As for the objectives themselves, they should be both vague and important, with a strong focus on improvised or contextual solutions. It's not about hiding, it's about planning so well that you can hide in plain sight. So, what games do this? Well, in the past 35 or so years, many have tried. Let's compartmentalize them a bit. When most people think spies, they think James Bond. And when you think James Bond, you think first-person shooter. Either GoldenEye, 007 Legends, The Other GoldenEye, Nightfire, The World Is Not Enough, The Other GoldenEye. Almost all first persons with shooty guns. Except for a few, but more on that later. There's also the far superior Perfect Dark, as well as the gadget-oriented game No One Lives Forever. The problem with all of these, and the idea that first person is a good perspective for this genre in general, is that the gameplay will inevitably devolve into a firefight nearly every mission. When presented with drastic stakes in first person, most developers will resort to shooting as an easy means of generating gameplay tension. To get a better perspective on the genre, therefore, we need to pull back.
Nathan, what happened? What went wrong?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Actually, one thing.
There are a ton of games that want to be espionage games here. Winback, Spy Fiction, Siphon Filter, basically everything that came out on the PS2 after Metal Gear Solid on the PS1. Up to and most definitely including Metal Gear Solid 2. James Bond games show up here again as well, highlighted most by 2003's Everything or Nothing. But again, the problem of leaning into gunplay when a lack of other gameplay options arises rears its head. There are few in this grouping that give better options, but we want to talk about them a little bit later. For now, let's look even farther back. Alright, here's where we really start to get into the good stuff, if you can stand the pixel art. Operation Stealth, also known as James Bond: The Stealth Affair in the United States, was a fantastically tedious point-and-click adventure from Delphine Software that tasked you with retrieving a stolen stealth bomber. Less good, and still James Bond, was Shaken But Not Stirred, a text-based Bond game. And there was also Spycraft, the great game, which gave itself way too much credit in the title, Virgin Games' Floor 13, and Sid Meier's Covert Action, which had a lot of good ideas and neat minigames, but aged quite horribly. And after all that, what are we left with? What games truly embody the spying, espionage genre? What's in the sweet spot? Decisions, infiltration, confusion, checks and balances, actions and reactions, choice and consequence. Few games embody these mantras while also adhering to the rules of the espionage genre. Hitman comes close, and it's definitely up there. No other game can have you sit across the room from your assassination target with so much tension. Tension that you created yourself because you're the one who chose the outfit that allowed you to sit in the chair in the room that you're in. Backed by the deep pockets of the ICA, Agent 47 blends in at parties and in rural areas like Bond never could in a video game.
Two targets down. Now destroy the virus.
And then there's Sam Fisher. While perhaps run into the ground like everything else in Ubisoft's library nowadays, the first few Splinter Cell games on the PS2 found you infiltrating enemy bases and avoiding combat at all costs, all the while retrieving information and utilizing a myriad of expensive gadgets. While the game could devolve into firefights if all other options were exhausted, Sam Fisher's weak health and lack of weaponry strongly discouraged live fire play. And then there's Metal Gear Solid 3. Oh boy, is there ever Metal Gear Solid 3. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is a 1960s James Bond movie like you picture them in your head. It's clever, it's unique, it's contextual, it's undeniably the best in the series, and it should be the shining example for what any espionage game should strive to be. If not for the next game I'm about to list. Mission Impossible. Developed by Ocean Software, released by Infogrames in 1998 and based loosely on the 1996 movie, Mission Impossible was criticized when it came out for inconsistent gameplay and slow controls. Especially having been released not long after Rare's GoldenEye, an almost transcendental game for console shooters at the time, Mission Impossible felt old and clunky when compared to the fast-paced action of other titles. However, for those willing to look past its issues, Mission Impossible for the Nintendo 64 had everything an espionage fan could want. Disguises, big parties, gadgets, infiltration, government secrets, double agents, chase scenes. This game had it all, and most importantly, it wasn't afraid to take your guns away and make you think for a while. This extensive gameplay variety and more thought-provoking segments were probably due to the fact that Ocean Software was originally developing Mission Impossible as a PC title, and then later switched to the N64 after the console became more successful. The new console's limited computing size, coupled with Ocean Software's well-documented history of not wanting to release a substandard product, caused long delays on the project. After some company restructuring in late 1996 when new owner Infogrames took control, the Mission Impossible game was reportedly playable only at 4 frames a second, and so a new team was brought in to help lower the polygon count. All of this history explains the little eccentricities of the Mission Impossible game, the janky controls mixed with the fantastic ideas and great level design. But that's about it for our list of spy games. What have we had lately? Not much. Indie games like Spy Party and Counter Spy exist, sure, and they do fill some sort of niche hole. But it's a niche that I'm begging to be able to be filled in deeper. Who knows what the future will hold? The Alpha Protocol IP still exists, and at the moment, unfortunately, that seems like the best option. We seem to have passed the age of movie tie-in games, and the most recent James Bond news was a rumored Telltale game called 007 Solstice, but, yeah. Anyway, that's all I really have to say on the subject. I like spy games, I wish there was more of them, and I hope that maybe by putting this video out into the universe it will inspire someone else to make a new one. Or at least if you're watching this and you know of one that meets all of our espionage criteria, and I neglected to mention it here, let me know in the comments. I'd be excited to play anything in the genre.
Oh, hi. It's me from before, the voice from the video. So, after I finished editing and reviewing it, I realized that I never really answered the question that I set out to answer, which was, why aren't there more of these types of games? The answer is complicated. Traditionally, games are based off of films, and those films are based off of books, like Casino Royale here. But, the James Bond in the books is a much different horse than the James Bond of the films, especially in the fact that he's not a mass murderer. The James Bond in these books probably kills a total of maybe 4 or 5 people throughout the entire series, and he carries those deaths with him. They're a part of him, and they influence his further actions. Whereas, Pierce Brosnan in GoldenEye is like mowing down Russian Cossacks in an underground satellite base, and in Agent Under Fire or Everything or Nothing, you're probably killing hundreds, if not thousands, of other people. In these books, mostly James Bond just talks to people, he hangs out with his friends, he meets some informants, and then he usually gets captured, and he's tortured for a good while. And then he figures out a way to solve the problem with the bad guy, usually about with this far of the book left to go. The point is that he's not a superhero. He's a super spy, but he's not a superhero. He spends the downtime in between each book in the hospital, or in a rehab facility, or in a mental institution, dealing with the traumas that he experienced during each of these adventures. And that's a big part of what makes a good story. It's why Die Hard is good, it's why Jackie Chan movies are good, is because there has to feel like there's stakes and they have to feel like they're real people. When you play a first-person shooter and you can just mow through hundreds of thousands of enemies, it's not real. You don't feel any sense of tension there. The point is that movies have it better, because they get to base their ideas off of books. So maybe video games should take a page out of movies' book and start basing themselves more on literature and less on film. And maybe then we can make some real progress. Peace out.
That's a risky Google.